What I'm getting ready to share with you applies to 99% of content creators. So it doesn't matter if you're a gaming channel, if you're a how-to channel, an entertainment channel, or anything in between. This information is gonna make a positive impact on your channel this year, but you have to make sure that you apply it. And look, you're gonna get all kinds of information thrown at you as you're watching more videos like this over the course of the year, especially here as we're getting started. So another really important part in order to make this information work for you is that out of all the videos that you're watching, you need to take notes on the things that you are watching, and you need to pick a path that you're going to take, because all of the different YouTube help channels, we're all sharing pretty much the same information, but we're sharing it in different ways and we're giving you different paths that you might be able to take. And because of that, you need to pick one, because the last thing that you want is to be trying to accomplish something and being pulled in all of these different ways because you're mixing up all these different strategies that are trying to get you there. And look, I know how frustrating it can be to watch videos like this where they're promising to help you out with your YouTube channel. By the time you get to the end of the video, you're like, what did I just do with my time there? That's not helpful at all. This is not one of those videos. Let me tell you why. My name is Nick Nimmin. I've been teaching content creators how to thrive on YouTube for about 8 years now. At the time of this recording, even though I've been on YouTube for over a decade and I've been helping content creators thrive on YouTube for over 8 years, I don't have a course to sell you. I actually make my money through sponsorships and affiliate marketing and by bringing attention to my own products that are not courses. And because of that, it's in my best interest to give you the information that you need, the real information, so that you'll keep coming back to my channel for other things and not just so that I can try to sell you a course. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to break this down into 5 easy to follow sections for you. Foundational principles of growing a YouTube channel, how to come up with video ideas that will actually get views, how to get people to click on your videos more effectively, how to get people to watch your videos for a longer period of time, and the importance of consistency and expanding your brand, which isn't what you think probably, because everything is changing right now when it comes to online video, and it's important that you are able to stay on top of it. So that particular section is going to help you do exactly that. If your channel is dedicated to YouTube Shorts, in that particular case, you can skip the part about thumbnails and getting people to click, but everything else is still going to be relevant to you as well. So if you're serious about growing your YouTube channel this year, I'm going to tell you exactly how, and we're starting right now. Okay, first we're talking about how YouTube works, which is part of the foundational side of growing your YouTube channel. Because if you don't know the game that you're playing and you don't know the rules, then in that particular case, you're only going to win if you get lucky. And when it comes to YouTube, sure, you can get lucky. You can have a couple of good videos, but to consistently publish good content, video after video, year after year, luck has no part in that. In a nutshell, when you publish a video to YouTube, YouTube shows it to the people that are the most likely to watch and engage and enjoy that content at that moment in time. Their system looks at your title, the actual content of your video, meaning everything you're showing on screen, everything that you say in your video, all of it. It's taking all of that information in. And it also uses your description as additional context as well. Most of the weight is carried from the actual video content in the title, but it does consider the video description also, just for additional context. Those things are especially important to consider, especially if you're new, because you need to give YouTube as much context as you possibly can, because right now you don't have a channel history like I do. So because of that, YouTube might not know yet exactly who to show your content to. So you need to be explicitly clear in your description, in your title, to help YouTube better understand who it is that their system needs to show your content to. And don't get me wrong, their system is smart. You can upload videos and they can do amazing without even having a video description. But if you're just getting started, it's important to make sure that you are just pulling every lever you can possibly pull to give yourself every opportunity that you can. Then they're going to show your content to similar people as the people that clicked on your content and enjoyed it. Now, as a part of this, they're also going to use this information to experiment with other people who have crossover interests with the people that they're showing it to that enjoy it as well. If nobody clicks on your video when YouTube is showing it to people, or once they get into your video, the viewer leaves too quickly, then in that particular case, that tells YouTube that people aren't into what it is that you're making, and therefore YouTube is going to end up prioritizing other content that is getting people to respond to it, and it's going to deprioritize your content because people aren't responding to it. They're wasting that space. So regardless of what anybody says, YouTube is a gigantic competition, and in order to compete, you have to learn how to do the rest of the things that we're going to be talking about in this video effectively. And if you can't compete and you're not willing to develop the skills involved to help you compete, then it's going to be really hard for you to get views unless you just naturally have a thing for content and people just naturally respond to what it is that you do and the decisions that you make around your content, which is rare. So I'm going to tell you how to compete. The very first thing when it comes to competing on YouTube is being able to come up with really good video ideas. Now, this sounds like something that would be common sense, but there's actually a lot of nuance to coming up with good video ideas and framing those ideas in a way that makes sense to the people that you're trying to reach. Because this part is so important, we're going to spend a little bit of time on it because people do struggle with this a lot. So I'm going to give you some tips to help you be able to come up with really great video ideas. The very first thing that's really important to keep in mind when it comes to your video ideas is that it's important to be able to come up with the thumbnail and the title for that video idea first before you commit to making the video. The reason that this is important is because you are confirming that you are going to be able to package up the video in a way that people that are seeing it for the first time on YouTube's homepage or suggested videos or search, to where it can grab their attention and then you can pull them in through a compelling title. So if you can't figure out how to make a good thumbnail and how to make a good title for your video idea, then that means that you can't express that video idea through those ways. And because of that, it's going to be really difficult to get people to click on what you're making, which is going to pretty much leave you dead in the water, even if you have a great video idea. But if while working on your video idea, you're like, okay, what type of title would I make for this? And what would I use in the thumbnail to help the people that I'm trying to reach identify that this might be something that they might care about? And you can define those things. Then in that particular case, you're going to be off to the races and you can go ahead and just move forward with that video idea because you have a nice, clear and intentional way that you're going to be packaging up that content so that the people that you're trying to reach will be able to identify it and they'll be compelled to actually watch the video itself. And one quick tip I want to give you while you are in that stage of thinking, okay, how can I make a good thumbnail and title for this? Also think about how the thumbnail and title create an expectation for the viewer. So anytime you're watching videos on YouTube, you're sitting there and you're scrolling through your home feed and you see a thumbnail and that grabs your attention and then you look at the title. Well, before you click on that video, inside of your brain, something happens to where you're like, okay, this seems like something I'd be interested in. This seems like it might be funny. This seems like it might be informative. This seems like it might challenge me in some way. Whatever the reason is, something happens in your brain that makes you go like, oh yeah, this is definitely for me and this is why. And then you click on that video. So when people are watching your videos, the same exact thing is taking place. So it's really important to make sure that you can create that expectation in a good way. And if you do that, that's going to help people be able to watch your videos for a longer period of time because you've intentionally built that expectation. And then you're going to deliver on that in the actual video content itself, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Making sure that you can express your video idea through a good thumbnail and title is also really important because it also helps make sure that you are preparing yourself or preparing that video to have the highest view potential. Let me explain. There are 4 key elements presented to viewers that give them information to help them decide if they want to watch your video or not. The topic, this is the most important. It's expressed through your thumbnail and title. The thumbnail, this is used obviously to grab the viewer's attention so that they can notice your video. The title, this actually gives the viewer the context that they need to click in and watch the video. And the autoplay. If someone hovers over your video, it's going to start to play, so also make decisions based on that. When it comes to your topics, if you want to give yourself the highest view potential, then in that case, I recommend that you think of your topics like a numbers game. This sounds basic, but it's important, so stick with me here. If only 10,000 people are interested in your topic, you have a max reach of 10,000 views if all 10,000 people watch it. If you make a video that 1 million people are interested in, the potential for that video is 1 million views. But here's the problem. Even if 1 million people are interested in that topic, only a certain percentage of those people are actually even going to get recommended that video in the first place. Out of those people that get recommended that video, only a certain percentage of them, a relatively low percentage, are actually going to click on that video and go in and watch it. That leaves the potential for that video way under 1 million views initially. But because when you publish videos and YouTube is a long game and your videos stay on the platform for a long period of time, you can still tap into tons of viewers. However, it just might not happen initially. So if you want to get more people clicking on your videos from a numbers perspective, then it's important to make sure, especially if you're getting started, that the topics that you're choosing to make content about, they have the largest amount of people that are interested in those particular topics within your niche. But don't look at this as a limitation. You can make anything more appealing or make anything have wider appeal with just a few tweaks, which is what I'm going to share with you right now. If I had a tech channel and I was wanting to make a video about a new mouse that came out that I wanted to let people know about, we'll call it the Nim Mouse 2000. Ta-da! We wouldn't make the topic of the video the Nim Mouse 2000 because if that were to show up on somebody's homepage as the Nim Mouse 2000 review, nobody would care about that because nobody knows what the Nim Mouse is yet. But with just a few small little tweaks, we can make that Nim Mouse 2000 video a lot more interesting to a lot more people by just fine-tuning some things. And by the way, this is why it's so important to think about the title and thumbnail before you commit to making the video. I call this approach the audience bridge. So instead of making the video about the Nim and Mouse 2000, I'm gonna make some minor tweaks to it and make it about a type of viewer that would benefit from using that mouse instead. By doing this, we are instantly increasing the amount of people that this particular video would be of interest to. For example, instead of Nim and Mouse 2000 review, we reframe the video at the topic level before we commit to making the video with the audience bridge and use "this mouse doubled my productivity." For the thumbnail, maybe the creator is in it or pointing to the mouse, or maybe it's just a photo of the mouse, but the idea is that previously the Nim and Mouse 2000 title wasn't interesting or relevant to anyone, and now it's instantly interesting to anyone who cares about productivity. Now, the important thing here that I do need to make sure is clear is you don't just try to make it important to anyone. You try to make it important to the type of viewer that you are specifically trying to reach. That's a really important part of this. Since my channel helps content creators like you learn how to thrive on YouTube, then in that case, if I was making that video for my channel, maybe I would make it about how that mouse cut my editing time in half. Then that way it would make it relevant to content creators. But the whole big picture that I'm trying to express here is that it's really important from a workflow standpoint to make sure that you are thinking about your thumbnail and title before you commit to making the video, so that you can give that video the highest view potential by making sure that you're framing it all in the right way and that you're making it of interest to the largest amount of people who are interested in the things that you talk about. Before we talk about thumbnails, if you do have any questions about anything I just said, make sure that you leave them down in the comments and we'll make sure that we get them answered for you. Now, let's talk about thumbnails in detail. Thumbnails and titles work together as a team to win the click. The thumbnail grabs the viewer's attention, the title pulls them into the video. Sometimes the thumbnail will also pull them into the video, but in most cases, they work together as a team. Since the goal of the thumbnail is to grab the attention of the person that's interested in your type of content, it's important to make sure that you have one clear focus point in your thumbnail. That focus could be you if you already have a following, it could be text, it could be an object, but there needs to be one crystal clear point of focus. If you've never designed anything before, then the best way to approach this is to make your thumbnail, close your eyes, open your eyes, and then look at your thumbnail and see what pulls your attention first. If you've never designed anything before, the easy way to make a nice, clear, focused point in your thumbnail is to make it the largest object in your thumbnail. The goal with this, when you're making your thumbnails, is to think about, for my viewers that I'm trying to reach with my content, what one thing can I focus them on in my thumbnail that's going to help them identify that this content is about something that they care about? And then you want to make sure that they can identify it at a glance. It shouldn't be something to where they have to sit and look at the thumbnail and stare at the thumbnail in order to make sure that they understand what's going on in the thumbnail. People don't have time for that. There's too much content to choose from. In order to do this, make sure your focus point is large. If there's color in the focal point, make sure not to use colors in the rest of the thumbnail that will pull the viewer's attention away from the focus point. For example, if a quilting channel was showing someone how to make a blue quilt, the quilt might be the focus point. Therefore, you wouldn't want to put a red object that isn't relevant to quilting in the thumbnail because it would pull attention away from the blue quilt as the first thing someone might see and focus on. However, if the red object was about quilting, it might help pull attention to the thumbnail in general, still connect with quilters so that they would spend more time looking at the thumbnail to see the blue quilt. This might sound complicated if you've never thought about using color in that way and never really thought about using design to get people to focus on something. So I'm going to put a video down in the description about color theory that you might want to check out. It's a short video. I recommend that as a great place to get started for understanding that concept more in detail. Now, a lot of people are curious about if they should put text in their thumbnails or not. Text is not required when it comes to your thumbnails. However, text can, in some cases, give additional context to what your video might be about. Since YouTube does have a feature now that lets you test thumbnails against each other, I do recommend that for your videos that you are testing videos without text in them and that you are testing some videos with text in them so that you can start to get a general idea for the people that are watching your videos, what they respond to best. If you're brand new to YouTube, I recommend that you look at other channels in your niche that are making similar content so you can see what it is that they're doing and kind of use that as a lead for the successful channels. However, I still recommend that you use YouTube's testing feature. If you are going to be using text in your thumbnails, make sure that the text is big, bold, and easy to read because nobody's going to sit there and study somebody's thumbnails on YouTube, especially when it's real small and suggested videos. So because of that, you just want to make sure that somebody can get what they need at a glance. It's also important to limit the amount of text in your thumbnails to as few words as possible. The reason for this is because you're trying to grab people's attention. You're not trying to tell them the entirety of what's going on in the video in your thumbnail. You're just using the thumbnail to grab attention. I'm going to say that one more time for good measure. Your thumbnails are to grab the attention of the people that you're trying to reach with your videos. That's what your thumbnails are for. When making thumbnails, ask yourself the following questions. What about this thumbnail will grab attention and help the viewer identify that this is something that they care about? Again, this can be an object, logo, person, or even a recognizable style. Ask yourself yourself, is there anything that I'm adding to the thumbnail that will pull attention away from the thing that I want the viewer to focus on? If there is, you should remove it so the viewer can focus on what's most important. Ask yourself what exactly about this thumbnail would make the viewer want to read the title. Ask yourself, if text is used, what words do I want the viewer to focus on and what words are extras? For example, if a food channel has 4 words in the thumbnail, how to make bread. How to should be smaller and make bread should be bigger. In fact, how to probably shouldn't even be in the thumbnail in the first place because it doesn't really give any context. If you have a photo of bread and you have make bread, pretty clear what that video is about in terms of grabbing their attention. And then from there, they can read the title to get the details. Also ask yourself, is there anything I'm adding to this thumbnail that isn't absolutely necessary? The reason this is important is because people will add subscribe buttons and all these other things that don't really add anything to the thumbnail. They're just trying to fill empty space. You don't want to do that. And as a side note, branding can be and is important when it comes to your thumbnails. However, it's important first to make sure that you learn how to make effective thumbnails and that you're able to grab people's attention effectively before you start messing with the branding stuff. Because when it comes to the branding stuff, you don't want to commit to something that isn't effective. Worry about all of those things once you start getting view counts that you're happy with on a regular basis and once you start picking up some momentum on your channel. Now, before we talk about titles, just like I mentioned in the other section, if you do have any questions about any of the things that I just mentioned, feel free to leave them in the comments and we will answer them as we see them. Now let's talk about titles. Titles are what actually get people to click on your video. Again, sometimes the thumbnail will be enough, maybe the thumbnail and the autoplay, but the title is what really pushes people over the edge. The job of the title is to simply inform the viewer of what the video is about, or 2, to create some type of curiosity from the title so that the viewer feels like they need to watch the video in order to satisfy that curiosity. Now remember, the thumbnail and title work together so you can use them together to make your video more interesting. If you're taking the path of curiosity, it's important to use the thumbnail to help you do that as well. For example, if a crafting channel makes a video about a blanket and uses a title like 3-color blanket, it's informative, but it's not compelling. In order to make it compelling, they could use something like, I made this blanket in just 3 days. By adding the in just 3 days, you are telling them that you made the blanket. You are telling them that you did it in 3 days so that it becomes something that's attainable for someone else and it becomes a quick project instead of something that someone has to dedicate a month to. It makes somebody feel like, yeah, I might be able to do that too. When writing your titles, it's also important to think through the lens of could watch versus should watch. For example, if a travel channel targeting viewers who are taking their travel experiences through the experiences of YouTubers, in that case, if they write a title that says my trip to Thailand, the potential viewer would know the video is about Thailand, but they might not feel like they need to or should watch the video. However, for the same type of viewer, if the title is Thailand surprised us in ways we never imagined, the title itself is more compelling, but there's also some nuance here that I would like to highlight. With the first title, My Trip to Thailand, it's informative, which is a step in the right direction, but there isn't really anything there. There's no emotional connection. There isn't really anything with that title. With the second title, Thailand surprised us in ways we never imagined, not only do we know that the creator went to Thailand, but we know that something happened that surprised or shocked them in some way. It suggests that something interesting happened, be it positive or negative, something happened on that trip to Thailand. The word ways is also plural, which also suggests that there might be more than just one thing that happened, that there might be multiple layers to this thing that happened to them in Thailand. These are the sorts of things to think about when you're writing your titles and why it's so important to make sure that you're writing your titles and considering what you're going to do for the thumbnail, again, before you even commit to making the video. So you can make sure that you get all of this stuff lined out so that when you make the video, it can deliver on however it is that you're framing the video. When writing your titles, ask yourself, how does this title work with the thumbnail? Do I have clear language that targets a viewer's interests? Is the title limiting in any way, or will it apply to a larger viewership within my niche? Is the title easy to read? Is the title under 60 characters? As a side tip, it's best optimized if you are 52 to 53 characters for your title, but 60 characters is okay. Is there one short sentence? What exactly is compelling or interesting about my title? If the perfect viewer for my content saw this on YouTube's homepage, would they be likely to click on it? And if the answer is yes, define why. Next, let's talk about how to get people to watch your videos for a longer period of time. How long people watch your videos is one of the major factors when it comes to how YouTube determines if people are satisfied with your content or not. Because of this, they give us a graph in our YouTube studio for every video that shows us how people react to our videos and how people react to our videos compared to other videos of similar length. This graph helps us understand things that we need to change in the future based on how people react to our current videos. If you already have videos published on YouTube, then you already have information based on how people people are responding to your videos. So the first place that you want to start is by looking into the videos that you've already published, looking for problem areas. While you're there, you also want to look for areas in your videos that cause people to rewind. That's identified through a spike. You also want to look for places in your video that people watched consistently and they didn't leave. When you take notes around those things that are happening in your videos, it's going to help you identify over time the things that people respond to better and the things that people respond to poorly in your videos. When your videos first start, this is the most important part of your video. Because of that, it's important to make sure that you are considering the expectation that is created from your thumbnail and title, which is, again, is why we want to make those first, so that when you make the video content itself, you can make sure that you're meeting the viewer's expectation right when they come into the video. This first part of the video is called the hook. And contrary to what you're going to see in some TikTok videos, holding a mouse while you're sitting there talking when your video starts is not a hook. When you are holding a phone when your video starts, you're playing with something when your video starts, that's also not a hook. It's a visual distraction. It's something completely different. Those sorts of things can be what's called a pattern interrupt later in the video as well. But for right now, let's just focus on the hook or the start of the video. When thinking of a hook, think of fishing. A fisher throws their line in the water and it's got a hook on it, and they use that hook to grab the fish, to hook the fish, and then reel them in and possibly eat them later. And of course, to highlight it while we're here talking about this reference, the bait is your thumbnail and title. But the goal of the hook is to grab the viewer's attention by giving them visual or audible information. In some cases, like educational content, the move might simply be to just tell them, this is what we're doing in this video. However, if you had a fishing channel and the video is about the 3 best lakes to fish in the United States, the hook could simply be pretty drone footage of one of the locations and some relaxing music playing for a second before you start telling the story of what led you there in the first place. Let's talk about the nuance of both of these options, because at the surface level, what I'm saying sounds like common sense, but we need to go a little bit deeper. If someone clicks on an educational video because they want to learn something, they might just want to get the info. That's why stating what the video is about or what they'll take away from the video could be the win. For the fishing video, if the viewer's interested in a video about the 3 best lakes to fish in the US, then they might be interested in the surroundings of the fishing area as well as the information about the fish in those areas and so on. That's why setting the scene might be the win. And I say might be the move and might be the win because these are things that you need to experiment with so that you can figure out what works best for your viewers, but it's important to be thinking in these ways as you're putting things together. But the hook is arguably the most important part of the video, because if you can't get people past that, then it's going to tell YouTube that people aren't enjoying your video, and then your video isn't going to do well. So because of that, it's really important to make sure that you are putting this kind of thought into the beginning of your videos and into your thumbnails and titles so that you can make sure that you're not only meeting the expectation, but you're also exceeding that expectation and creating a great experience for your viewers. After the hook, if it isn't already part of the content, you can start the content that the viewer came in for. And to keep people watching for a longer period of time, here are some things to keep in mind. Don't waste time with logo intros. They do not matter to the viewer. Instead, if you are going to use a logo for some type of branding, just use it as more of a transition than an actual intro. Make sure your videos and stories have a clear beginning, middle, and end so that you can take viewers on a journey through your content and that there is some type of satisfaction that they get by the end of it. It can be helpful as you're going through your videos to remind people what the video is about or what you're trying to accomplish or what's at risk or anything like that. So for example, in my case with this video that you're watching right now, I told you before we talk about X, leave a comment if you have any questions. And then in the next segment, I said, before we talk about X, if you have any comments, leave the next segment. So before I tell you to leave a comment for that next segment, I'm telling you this is something that's coming up next. This is what we're going to be talking about to remind you that we are going to be staying on track with what I promised at the beginning of the video. When it comes to editing your videos, you're going to see all kinds of different editing styles on YouTube. Experiment with different styles based on who it is that you're reaching with your content or who it is that you want to reach with your content, because some types of viewers respond better to certain types of editing choices. So for example, if you're a younger viewer, then in that case, you probably are going to respond better to high retention editing where just stuff is going all over the place, compared to if you are an older person and you're watching content, you're trying to learn something like from this video, where you might want the editing to be a little bit slower and you don't want tons of distractions happening all over the place. And most importantly, when it comes to audience retention, it's important to know that the same exact things that work for one type of channel are not necessarily going to work for another type of channel when it comes to retention. So because of that, it's best to experiment on your channel with the people that are watching your videos so you can learn how to make what's best for them. Another way to keep people watching if you're telling stories in your content is to use the but-so framework. But introduces a conflict, so is a resolution to that conflict. I don't know why this works as well as it does, but for some reason humans really respond to it. And the creators of South Park, they actually have a different framework with this, to where I think theirs is like but so therefore, or something like that. I can't remember the details of theirs, but there's different frameworks for this that you can apply to your videos. So I recommend that you do Google that. But how this works, for example, is I went to the store to get all the ingredients to make a perfect chocolate cake, but they didn't have any chocolate, which is the core ingredient. So I had to drive to the other side of town to pick up some at the other location. But when I got there, they were closed. So I had to hop back in the car and head to my friend's house. Luckily, they had some and we ended up making the cake together. If you were to apply this to a review video, I switched from Android to the iPhone and I thought that it was going to be amazing. But the Photos app was completely different than I expected, and so were some of the other features. So I'm gonna share with you the great parts of the phone and the worst. Now you can apply those types of things where they're super close, like those examples that I just gave, or space them out to where it makes more sense for a longer video. My version of that was just trying to express how they work together. But the idea is that it's just a simple way to create tension and release in your content, which is the same exact thing that people do in storytelling in movies. It's the same exact thing that people do in music. That tension and release thing is just something we respond to as humans. Now let's talk about consistency and actually building or expanding your brand on YouTube. So when it comes to consistency, a lot of people think of consistency as I upload a video every Monday at 2 p.m. and I do that indefinitely forever and then I'm consistent. That is true. However, when it comes to consistency, things are a little bit different these days. So consistency is about consistency in your upload schedule. Consistency is about your branding and having a consistent message throughout your content. Consistency is that you show up and you deliver when you say that you're going to deliver. But consistency comes in all these different forms. And because of that, it's important to make sure that consistency is something that you're considering. And another part of consistency is that you are publishing on a regular basis. Now, in the past, we could get away with a video a week, and in some cases a video a month, and some people still can. But if you're really wanting to get the most out of this year when it comes to growing your YouTube channel, then it's going to be important to where you start uploading on a regular basis, either more content to your YouTube channel or having an additional YouTube channel that you upload extra content to, or uploading to Instagram and everywhere else as well as YouTube, so that you can expand your brand, so that you can have all of these different touch points with the people that are enjoying your content across all of the platforms that you can manage. To publish consistently, I have a sponsor on my channel called Opus Clip. You probably hear me talking about them all the time. If you're a regular viewer, if you're new, then this might be the first time that you're hearing about them. But one of the things that's really helpful for them, and one of the reasons that I support them so much, is because they help content creators be consistent. So the way that their system works is you take one of your YouTube videos and you paste it into their system, and then it will give you a bunch of clips from that video that you pasted. And in addition to that, they have like voice processing, and you can add B-roll to them to make it something that's a little bit different and things like that. So it's a great tool to help you be able to consistently put content up all over the place, or create new channels, or fill in the blanks on your YouTube channel when you're inconsistent there, when you just can't make an upload. If you're a live streamer, it's also amazing because then you can take that one live moment that you had and you can turn it into content that you can use for a long time. I have an entirely different channel that I just upload that content to. So it's really helpful when it comes to making sure that you are putting yourself in as many places as you can with as little effort as possible. But that tool is called Opus Clip. I'll put a link to them down in the description below, or you can use my affiliate link and go to tryopusnow.com and you can see what it's all about. Another thing about consistency is that it's also about being in a consistent state of development. So as content creators, we have so much that we have to learn, and there's so many moving parts to all of this stuff when it comes to editing videos and presenting our content, coming up with good video ideas and all those things. There's just so much. And because of that, it's important to make sure that you're not just watching how to grow on YouTube videos, because after a certain amount of videos, you're going to start hearing the same things over and over again. But instead, start watching videos on how to edit videos, how to make thumbnails, how to present your content. If you're, not comfortable on camera, how to get comfortable on camera. Watch videos about those types of things, in addition to if you want to watch the how to grow on YouTube stuff. But the thing that's going to end up moving the needle for you the most as a content creator is that skill development, because as you develop skills and you're consistently working on those skill sets, it's going to help you be able to see things that as a new content creator, you might not be able to see yet just because you haven't developed the skills in order to be able to see them. So for example, the fishing reference that I gave earlier, a fisher can go and they can look at a lake and they can be like, hey, yeah, there's probably some really good fish in here. It's probably this type of fish and so on. And they know that based on their experience as a fisher. Whereas somebody like me would go to that same lake and be like, man, I have no idea if there's even fish here. I mean, there's water, so probably. I don't know what type of bait I should be using. I don't know anything. Like, I know that maybe I should get worms. That's about all I know. So through developing those skills, you're going to develop that expertise that's going to help you be able to see and understand things on YouTube that you might not be able to see or understand at this moment in time. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. It's just the reality for all of us when we start something new. So if you are a new content creator, hang in there, you got this, but make sure that you are working on just consistently being in that state of self-development around creating content so that you can give yourself the best shot here on YouTube. And look, if you are a new content creator, I made a video about a year ago that shares a bunch of things that new content creators need to make sure that they're being mindful of, things that'll help keep you out of trouble, things that, just make sure that you're gonna stay on track as a content creator. I'm gonna put a link to that video right here so you can go ahead and click into that now, and I'll see you over there in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.